So, ladies and gentlemen, in less than 24 hours after the French parliamentarian of the European Union that leveled an unfounded allegation against the nation of Burkina Faso.
Burkina Faso, this West African country today, exemplifies the dramatic failure of the military junta that has been in power since the 2022 coup d'etat. In 4 years, the country has gradually become isolated from the international community, has been suspended from several regional and international organizations, while fundamental freedoms are being systematically curtailed. At the same time, the security situation has worsened. More than half of the territory is beyond the control of the state, and several million Burkinabe have been displaced and are in need of humanitarian aid.
Leveling allegations such as repression and human rights, civil society, and also saying that the Burkinabe government have been able to successfully decouple Burkina Faso from so many international organizations. A lot of people reacted to this video, but Burkina Faso is not just going to let this slide. According to the information we received, the Burkinabe foreign minister immediately summoned the European representative in the Sahel. And they had some bilateral talks that was really serious to find out what that unfounded allegation was about. Now, we are seeing Burkina Faso immediately, re-emphasizing that they would not tolerate any sort of interference in state affairs, which is part of their doctrine, which is part of their foreign policy. Non-interference in state affairs. Ladies and gentlemen, without no further adulation, let me take you away in this video.
You have closely followed and monitored the most recent news developments regarding the resolution that was, quite regrettably, adopted by the legislative body of the European Parliament concerning the current situation in Burkina Faso. Naturally, in the face of such actions, we have seen fit to summon the ambassador of the European Union to express our disapproval, our disappointment, and above all, the disgust that this resolution has provoked in us. First of all, by acting in this way, the European Parliament has completely violated the principle of non-interference. It has trampled on all the provisions regarding the right of non-interference, especially since the argument presented to the deputies was full of completely false information. It was also, for us, a sign of contempt insofar as it shows a total ignorance of the efforts currently being made. Our country has been fighting for a long time to confront insecurity alongside Mali and Niger. We form this barrier that the three leaders are trying to maintain and strengthen in order to protect our neighbors to the south. And to see a parliamentarian come and present false figures about a country he has not visited, we believe he has sullied the sanctity of the European Parliament by delivering such a speech with neo-colonialist overtones. So it was important for us to speak sincerely and directly to the ambassador of the European Union to make it clear that Burkina Faso acts with full sovereignty in matters of domestic policy, and that we are not members of the European Union. The European Parliament cannot position itself as a judge to tell us what we should do regarding the management of civic space and security matters. This deputy who spoke is a soldier, it seems to me, at least in the past. He is pursuing a political career that already seems compromised to me by the way he addresses these issues. He knows very well how the security situation began in our countries, while ignoring NATO's responsibility, who destabilized Libya and whose consequences have been borne by our countries here, yet they come so easily to talk about the security situation in our country while ignoring their own responsibility. In what we are currently managing, we believe that in some way this is unhealthy. So we made a point to bring this up, we made a point to mention it by saying that what is happening Here in Burkina, this falls under the internal politics of Burkina Faso.
I met with the Minister of Foreign Affairs this morning following the resolution adopted by the European Parliament, which allowed me to explain again the functioning of the European Union, of course. And so, as I told the Minister of Foreign Affairs, I've obviously taken note of everything he told me, which I will report back to my authorities in Brussels. Simply put, the information that was given to me.
Moreover, the European representative said he will be taking the message to Brussels to take it to their leaders. But you definitely know what time it is with the Brussels representative, the likes of Kaya Kallas or Ursula von der Leyen. You know what they are about. They are about the Kabuki theater. Everything they say, we take it with a pinch of salt. Now, for context, so that you will understand, that you will be able to appreciate the response of Burkina Faso, and even more so the counter response, because for every issue there is a counter measure to every issue in form of a response this time around. But before we get started, ladies and gentlemen, let's even look at this very, very creepy allegation by this French parliamentarian. Shall I take you away?
Burkina Faso, this West African country today, exemplifies the dramatic failure of the military junta that has been in power since the 2022 coup d'etat. In 4 years, the country has gradually become isolated from the international community, has been suspended from several regional and international organizations, while fundamental freedoms are being systematically curtailed. At the same time, the security situation has worsened. More than half of the territory is beyond the control of the state, and several million Burkinabe have been displaced and are in need of humanitarian aid. After more than 10 years of fighting terrorism with the support of France and Europe, and now cut off from its former partners, Burkina Faso is sinking into chaos. It has become a sanctuary for Islamist terrorist groups and organized crime, posing an increasing threat to its neighboring countries, the most economically dynamic in the region: Côte d'Ivoire, Ghana, Togo, and Benin. This resolution is right to call for support from civil society and humanitarian actors. But we must also assume a strategic responsibility, strengthening our support for neighboring states that today form the first line of defense against the destabilization of all of West Africa. Because when West Africa falters, it is Europe that will falter.
Hold on, community. We are not about to start this analysis right now. Before we get into the analysis, I want you to look at the counter response, in my opinion, that I see as a counter capability to that desperate guard by France right there. Ladies and gentlemen, let's watch this video.
You're a bit bitter about being expelled, about having been expelled from the Sahel, aren't you? Listening to some of my colleagues, especially the French ones on the right, everything is starting to make a bit more sense to me, because I was wondering, in Belgium, in France, we keep producing and buying military equipment for billions of euros. This was specifically designed to be used in the Sahel. I thought to myself, it's strange because we're told we need to defend ourselves from Russia, but we're buying this military equipment that's specialized for Africa. We're going to drain our pensions, our hospitals, our schools to do this. I found that strange and I wondered why. I looked into it and realized that, in fact, the Sahel region has, in recent years, become one of the most important mining corridors in Africa. Burkina Faso is one of the largest gold producers in Africa, but it also has copper, zinc, manganese, and phosphate. Mali is soon going to become the second largest lithium producer in Africa. Niger, of course, holds hundreds of thousands of tons of uranium. And for years, for decades, European companies have had cheap access to all these resources, all this wealth. The result, countries plundered and extreme poverty for their populations. And now you're afraid of losing that access. But instead of always wanting to interfere, of always waging war, because we saw what happened with the destruction of Libya, let's rather help these countries with everything we can to support their sovereign development.
So now this is a proof that other European countries, because that was another parliamentarian representing another European country. And if I can recall clearly, they said that is the representative of Belgium. Don't forget, we are all on the same page. Belgium recently kicked out France from a uranium mining sector that was severely dominated by the Orano, the same organization that was booted out of Niger Republic. Now they're trying to consolidate their, need energy requirement from Belgium, and Belgium is looking at it that given the situation and the stance of the European Union against Russia, which is making that cheap energy not benefit the European Union, and looking at the current geopolitical escalation in the Middle East, talking about the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz situation, Europe is desperate, and Belgium looked at France for a minute. You know what? That E3 Kabuki theater is not going to work. Get out of our country. And now you see, every time France makes any type of derogatory statement, you definitely know that they just took another economic uppercut right there. A lot of people took this, a lot of people reacted and all of that. The answer to that lie that was told in the European Parliament, which is now, literally a joke on the global geopolitical landscape right now, the answer is already there. You know why the answer is there? You just have the British Prime Minister in Keir Starmer now resigning due to the geopolitical pressure from the economic standpoint. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the United Kingdom. These are the E3s we're talking about here. They've lost their grip on every single calculus that defines a real nation state. A lot of people have been saying that the Europeans have lost their identity. I don't think so. I think things are beginning to change. I think the multipolar world, which the Alliance of Sahel States is an integral part of, is beginning to emerge, even against every attempt by the old world rule-based order to suppress. I think it's not working, and the truth is coming out. You see, a lot of people, you are seeing the Belgian parliamentarian response. It is because Belgium is beginning to face the same propaganda. And they came out of the Tom bottle and said it right there in the face of the world. If that is what the European Union is all about, when they say something, they say the world have said it, because they feel everybody is a subject to the European Union. And that's a lie. You know what I mean? So that is the answer right there. But the bigger answer behind, you can see even the Belgians said it to the point where he said that they were sending the weapon, which they were, let's donate this type of, this $1 billion to Ukraine to support their fighting. They were sending this weapon to the Sahel because the entire Europeans, entity, they were depending on this ship resources. France was the bride, but the bride now, is nowhere to be found anymore. Now that this nation have asserted the dominance on their strategic sovereign resources that belong to the Burkinabe people, the Malian people, and the great Nigerian people, a people in Africa that have decided to be sovereign regardless of the cost. So, ladies and gentlemen, as a matter of fact, when you hear the loud noise of what people call in my language ajainule, you understand? It simply means that France is seriously desperate. Every time you hear one or two things from either their media sources or through the European Parliament or through their foreign intelligence agency or through destabilization like what happened in the Dioriamani, it just shows you that there is a serious pressure over there economically that is really, really affecting the political interest of the country. Then they are going to make, we can't deny at this point that this was an empire that was built on lies, that was built on other people's blood, sweat, and tears. It's time up, ladies and gentlemen. It's time up. Keir Starmer has, resigned. Now we're looking at Frederick Merz of Germany, very, very unpopular. You know, Germany used to be the economic hub of Europe, and now because of the energy crisis, the situation of Germany is a complete debacle. And when you look at France, we all know what time it is. Ladies and gentlemen, this is just the information we want to bring to you. Now, what do you think about this geopolitical table shaker? Ladies and gentlemen, it's your boy 7200 signing out, said. But before I go, I really appreciate you for coming. I promise the Android community that we will be talking about the geopolitical shift in Sudan, where the Sudanese armed forces is currently showing the rapid support force called the Janjaweed. They are really showing them what the Nigerian people call shege.
الناس الجوف الغريب يتقدموا الدوالي مبروك التجارة قام التجارة مبروك مبروك يا شباب مبروك التجارة مبروك مبروك يا شباب قام العربية جناب عمر تعال المدر تعال لي كم دي العربية جناب عمر مبروك والله مبروك يرى مبروك يرى والله مبروك والله دير عربيات العدو مبروك 4000 جرى مبروك دي عربياتنا والله شوف بتاري كيف مبروك مبروك الناس تتقدم يا مبروك 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 يا شباب مبروك والله يا شباب.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's unlike anything you've seen. But we are going to come in the evening on the next video where we are going to be showing you what is currently going on in Sudan. And until then, representing the Android community is your one and only 7200 signing out to no, sir. But before I go, thank you and God bless you.